Little life hack for you. If you ever get stir crazy, sense memory is amazing. And going to a gas station to get a really crappy cup of coffee makes me feel like I'm on the road. Gotta get a pack of Milanos too. Welcome to one of our most beautiful and scenic sites here in Los Angeles. This is the LA River, but it is close to home, and so I thought we'd come down here, have our coffee and snack. I switched out my Milanos for some Nutella biscuits, which I saw at the cash register. Never had these, so had to try them. Oh shoot. So I put out a call on Instagram yesterday asking for any questions you guys might have. Thought we would do a little Q&A. And so here we go. Running into life. Where is somewhere that you would love to go with a camera that you've never been to? I'd love to go to Southeast Asia, Thailand, Vietnam. Like, I think that would be really amazing. I'd love to go to Indonesia. I really want to go to Patagonia. That's on my list. Running into Life also asked a favorite photo destination that you've been to before, that I have been to before. I just love traveling, so everywhere is a win for me. I love New Mexico. I love Tahiti. I would love to spend more time in Tahiti. When I go there, it's usually for family. My father is on the main island of Tahiti. He, however, lived on a boat for the 20 years that or the majority of the time that he's been there. He's now no longer capable of being on the boat, but I would love to go farther afield to like the Marquesas, which are some of the more remote islands, and they look absolutely incredible. He spent a lot of time there, photographed a lot there, and so that's kind of like, that's still on my bucket list. Matt Gnomes, Micro Four Thirds is the best format. This is not a question. I can't disagree with you. Micro Four Thirds is freaking awesome, and I love it. And yeah, no comment beyond yes, agreed. King Z Fan 71. If you could have any camera from any era, what would it be? Oh, I mean, all of them. Like, I love cameras. I'm really not very selective. So I pretty much anyone. I don't have like a white whale, if you will. Mark Flores. Bought a Ricoh GR3 because of your video. Do you still shoot with it? So I do love the GR3. I think it's such an amazing camera, and just that lens is so bananas. But that is a sort of weird way of me saying I don't actually shoot with it anymore. I did end up selling it because I did get the OVF for it, but I struggled a little bit to really get comfortable, and I just noticed I wasn't picking it up, which is weird. Because I completely, as you saw in the video, kitted it out. Like, I was like, this is going to be my camera forever. This will be the thing I shoot with. What I found was I kept gravitating toward a tighter framing, and I did really miss that EVF. So I went another way, and in order to fund that other way, I did end up selling the GR3. I still think it's an absolutely stellar camera though, and I would highly, highly still recommend it. Like, if I could have kept it, I would have, but it just didn't make sense given kind of another move that I made, which I'm sure I'll get into here. Can you post more gear in your photos? Camera, lens, anything else? This is from Gales 2000. So this has been my struggle because the whole purpose of this channel was around this ethos of no bad cameras, right? Hashtag no bad cameras. The goal was to illustrate that you could basically pick anything up and that gear doesn't matter, the intent of which is just to get people encouraged to go out and shoot. So that was the intention, but of course in doing so it was very gear focused, and I kind of got tired of that being the topic. Like, I kind of got tired of reviewing cameras and like getting into all the details around it. Now, that's not entirely gone away. Like, I still love cameras. I still love talking about cameras. I can nerd out for hours with friends just getting into the minutia of a camera. But I got a really sort of weird, I don't know, I started feeling weird about just like being so gear focused when my goal was to kind of like combat gas and get towards the content and the goal of just getting out there and shooting with whatever is available and accessible to you. So that's why I've kind of stopped posting it, but I also understand the desire and like the fun of posting the gear. So I'm a little bit back and forth. Comment down below if you want me to start including that again. I get it if you do, and yeah, I'm happy to do it. I just was trying to kind of move away from that, but I also get it. Gales 2000 also says, can you do a video of you shooting? I would love to do a video of me shooting. I honestly would. It's so hard because I am truly a one-man band. I'm very envious of people who have like other people who can shoot them. My schedule is just super kind of crazy, and I just squeeze these videos in pretty unscheduled. Like, I do really like the idea of it. Maybe I'll call Caleb. Photo De Castro says, favorite Olympus camera? Man, I love all of them. Honestly, everything from like the very, very early ones. So my first video on here was a review, a pretty terrible review of the Olympus E300. I think that's probably one of my favorites forever still, just because it's so weird and quirky, and like, I don't use these cameras in a professional capacity. So for me, it's just about what's fun, what's different, what's quirky, what's weird. What I don't like about that camera is the manual focus experience, so it's just not usable in low light, really. But it's such a fun, odd, strange, delightful little camera. Still pretty compact, particularly with the 25mm pancake lens, so yeah, that probably gets my vote. Don Rogan says, from a photography perspective, what's your biggest creative challenge right now? I mean, that's a good question. Probably just being able to spend time on a project. Like, I would love to be a bit more dedicated to one particular project around kind of like teenage life right now. I'm absolutely enamored and in love with kids these days. I kind of mentioned this in like a Threads post. And there's a project that's kind of been long-term for me that I really get to it once a year. And I would love to spend more time to dedicate to that, really get embedded and into the lives in a very sort of photojournalistic way with some young folks today. And it's basically impossible at this point in time, but maybe one day. Time for a bite. Ian Farrell says, when do you feel most creative? My most creative times, and again, this is, not very often that I get to do this, but if I can take a day off of work and have no family obligations, no kids to take care of, no work to do, and I can just kind of like close myself into a room and think about what I want to make and then spend some dedicated time going out to shoot, that is such an amazing, awesome, wonderful experience. Even if it's a half day, I'll just put in for a half day and just give myself this space to be creative, because basically all of my creative work has to kind of conform to the life of being, the parent and full-time worker that I am. So when I make space for creativity, that is definitely my most productive time. Drew Shannon says, with so many fun cameras, do you find it hard to adjust to new systems, menus, brands, etc.? I have this funny thing where like I want to be so embedded and deep with a camera and get to know it, which is kind of, again, the genesis of this channel, where it's just like dedicated 2 weeks with one camera, get to know it inside and out, just get really familiar, start building that muscle memory. What I don't like is then having to go to the next camera so quickly. So I am now in a space where I just want to spend more time with the camera, get more familiar with it. And then I hit this weird point of like, I don't want to call it fatigue, but like I get a little bit too comfortable with it. Maybe after like 2 months, I get like a little bit of a wandering eye. And then I like to switch my gear to sort of shake up my sense memory or my muscle memory, and that kind of motivates me, inspires me, and like gets me out trying new things again. But yes, I also get this like extraordinary fatigue of just like cycling through cameras. I actually don't really like to do that anymore and don't really want to do that. So that's why I'm kind of spending more time with each individual camera to give myself the room to really get to know it and to get familiar with it. Right now I'm basically shooting one camera, one lens, and I'm thoroughly enjoying that. And also just kind of, getting away from, again, the gear in general and just trying to focus more on spending time thinking about the projects and the content is really fun. So yeah, kind of a yes and a no. Jam Roberts says, are your magic powers tied to your magic coat? Unquestionably. Yeah, it hasn't come out in a minute because it's warm now and I'm feeling very unpowerful. It's not even a word. A Day with Mario says, do you usually use auto white balance or the built-in presets manually choose Kelvin on your older DSLRs or adjust in post? With my older DSLRs, if I'm shooting RAW, which I typically do, if that's available, I will pretty much just shoot an auto white balance, and if there are any adjustments that need to be made, I'll just make those in Lightroom. If I'm shooting JPEG, I will select the white balance manually. A lot of older ones don't allow for the sort of more nuanced Kelvin option. If it's available, I'll do that. If it's not available, I'll just go to the preset, daylight, shade, all of that. But yeah, for JPEG, I definitely dial it in. Brian Odell says, all-time favorite focal length if you could only choose one lens to use forever. 100%, without question, 35 millimeter. I'm just a real basic gal. 35 just is how I see the world, and it's how I like to shoot. And that was kind of my issue with the GR. I also do love 28, which is the weird thing, but I just, for day-to-day life, kind of just continued to push and gravitate towards the 35, which is why I kind of switched systems. Eugene KW18 says, can you edit photos from a CMOS sensor to have this cool filmic nostalgic look? Why CCD? I'm so glad this question was asked, because I feel like in the world of YouTube and social media, like this whole thing around CCD, it's gotten kind of overdone. 100%, you can create those cool vibey feels with a CMOS sensor. Absolutely. Just to like set the record straight on my take with CCD, I typically wasn't posting JPEGs, and that's where you would see like the color science of the CCD sensor, right? And each manufacturer is gonna have their own color science, so it's not like there's something magical about CCD in and of itself. For me, what I loved about CCD were two things. One, when I started shooting these old cameras, I was just gobsmacked by how capable they were and how malleable the files were. I was like just kind of unaware of how awesome these pictures could be, and like, why was I chasing this dragon of new tech? So that was a major, exciting, for me, kind of piece of this equation, and why I kind of got so obsessed with CCD sensors. But in addition to that, I would say the biggest thing for me was that when I take a CMOS RAW file and a CCD RAW file, I just find that I get to the look that I like in editing much faster with a CCD file, typically. Not all CCDs, by the way, like some of the Sony CCDs I don't get along with as well, but there's an era of like that 6 to 16 megapixels, or I'm sorry, 6 to like 12 megapixel CCD sensor RAW file that I just find so easy to edit. And it just gets me to a world of color that is much more to my taste in a much faster capacity. But it's not that I couldn't do it with a CMOS sensor. It's just that it's easier with CCD. It's faster with CCD. So hopefully that makes sense. Spider Dude says, I often wonder what photography would be like in the present if social media never happened. Oh my God, that is a Pandora's box. Yeah, that would be really interesting to know what that would look like. I imagine it would not be that different from what the world was like in the film days, where it's like, it's just, the difference would be the accessibility though, because film, whilst accessible, I mean, I don't know, towards the end though, there were a lot of automated amazing cameras like the EOS 1N and all of that. So like, I don't know, it would be, it's a really interesting question, but probably a lot less, maybe it would be less banger oriented, if you will. Like single one-off imagery would not be as, it would still be very probably point and shoot style family pics, and then maybe longer term projects, but I don't know. Mr. Vibes.p, have you ever tried a Fuji XH1? Any thoughts on that body? I haven't, but I would say that's probably in the Fuji world, maybe one of the most bang for buck cameras that I imagine you can get. I haven't really looked up pricing lately, but I don't feel like a lot of people talk about that camera. And yet I remember when it came out, I was so into it. I had an XT3 at that time, and I really wanted to get the XH1. It looks so awesome. It has that IBIS, and you know, it's very hybrid focused. So, I mean, if you have the opportunity to try it out, definitely, I think it would be worthwhile. Definitely Rafi says, are modern cameras too good that it takes away some of the fun in photography? Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's very much where I was driven to some of these older, like vintage digitals, is just wanting a bit more of a challenge and a more tactile experience, and just being able to Uh-oh, there's a dog fight. Nightburger 2001 says, what catches your eye when you shoot street? Do you go out deliberately to shoot? You know what I love about street photography is like, I think it happens so quickly, and certainly the way that I shoot street, because it's not usually deliberate. I would love to shoot deliberately, but typically I have a very limited period of time to do it. So it's oftentimes for me on the way somewhere. So for example, the street shots that I posted recently from San Francisco, all of those were shot from my walk, and I very intentionally choose a hotel that's about a 15-minute walk from my office so that I can get that walk in and get any captured imagery in that 15 minutes. So 15 minutes to the office, 15 minutes home. So I'm getting about 30 minutes a day, and I had 2 days on the ground. So, and it just is my way of like starting the day in a really happy place, and I love it. I love it, love it, love it. So it's a really fun way to approach street, because to me, what I gravitate towards and what my eye sees in those moments is beyond my conscious mind. It's like this subconscious thing where you just see something and you don't know why you're gravitating toward it. And it's not until I pull it into Lightroom that I'm like, oh, that's why I like this frame. Like I recently posted a photo, I think just yesterday, from a luncheon that I went to, and I captured this woman with 2 bottles in her hand, and I wasn't sure why. I just wanted that moment, but I just looked up and I grabbed it really fast, totally unconscious. And then when I looked at it, I was like, oh, that's why I like this photo, is because she's pouring these bottles of wine. Behind her on the mural is this kid holding a hose and pouring that onto plants. So it was like there's this like comedic composition, nurturing plants and nurturing humans with alcohol. I don't know. I thought it was funny, and I didn't think of it in the moment, but I saw it, I captured it, and I love that about street. It kind of taps into a different part of the subconscious that I really enjoy. Enneagram Photo says, not a question, but if you ever want to borrow some super telephoto lenses to review, that's very kind of you. Thank you so much. I don't know, I'm not much of a lens reviewer. It's funny because I just did a podcast with my wonderful friend Ian Farrell, who has a fantastic podcast called Prime Lenses, if you're unaware of it. He hasn't released our chat yet, but that'll be coming up. I'll definitely announce it when it does, but it's all centered around lenses. My opener is basically I'm like the wrong candidate for this show because I'm very unprecious about lenses, but I do think the option for telephoto is so cool. And when I did my Nikon 1 video, that was really the first time that I spent time pushing myself into a telephoto space, and it was awesome. I loved it. NDTX says, why don't you include the camera deets on your IG posts? I just covered that. Pinnison, sorry if I'm slaughtering that name. If you can only have one camera for your entire life, what would it be? Anything. I mean, I know that's such a cop-out of an answer, like not anything, not a CCTV camera, but generally speaking, if it takes a picture, I am super happy. I obviously would prefer something with more manual control, raw capabilities. I really just love taking pictures, and it doesn't matter what the camera is. Tariq Haj Shahadi, sorry again. Do you use any app that acts like a disposable camera filter? I've seen a lot of these like very like disposable camera filter focused apps. I don't use those. What I do use and absolutely love for my phone, I've used it for years and I just keep returning to it after trying all kinds of other things, is Snapseed. It's free. It has wonderful little camera filters, if you will, or not camera filters, but like looks, and in the film component of it, and I use that all the time. This is mad, or this is mad, I don't know. Should Apple bring back the Aperture app? Probably not. The editing software for photography space is so saturated between like raw therapy and Darktable, as was mentioned in one of my recent videos in the comments, GIMP, like all of these very free and accessible open source editors, as well as like your Lightrooms, your Capture ones, your DxO Photo. I think they're also just putting all their R&D to video, right? Like they just announced, I haven't even looked into it, but they just announced, I think, like a new camera app for video. So I think that's the space that makes sense for them. I actually just left Final Cut for Resolve thinking that Apple was like giving up on this space in general, but it doesn't appear that's the case. And but I love Resolve, so I'll probably be staying there for a while. NicoChat31, is the Ricoh GR3 still one of your loved ones? Kind of got to that at the beginning. Jonathan822, best noise reduction method for Merrill and Quattro files. Topaz Photo AI has me curious. Yeah, probably that is the way to go. because I do prefer to process the images in Sigma Photo Pro, but if you were to do the noise reduction first, then it won't recognize the file in Sigma Photo Pro the same way, I don't believe. So I would probably still do all my edits in Sigma Photo Pro and then take it into Topaz Photo AI. It's a great piece of software. It is very effective. I will say I think it's too heavy-handed, so just play with your parameters if you want to go that route. But yeah, I think you can download a free trial, so test it out. Alex Cozy says, only one camera plus one lens forever. I mean, yeah. Well, it's gonna be a 35mm lens, or maybe like a 24-70 for flexibility, but I think 35. It just simplifies things. It's also smaller, lighter, and then the body that it gets put on could be pretty much anything. Joe Burke says, do you have a trick that motivates you to photograph when you find yourself in a rut? Really good question. That is oftentimes when I'll pick up a different camera, and oftentimes a crappy camera. I think crappy cameras are a great way to just get less precious. I think a lot of ruts come from us wanting to be too serious about our work, and sometimes you just need a fuck it camera, like a camera that you can just grab and just have fun with. I think fun is the way to shake a rut. Giani Wasabi says, if you could shoot only one person from the present or the past, who would it be, why, and with what camera? I can answer this. It would be Dorothea Lange, who is kind of like a hero of mine. She just had an absolutely amazing life. She did amazing work, and I would shoot her with her camera, her 4x5 camera. That's who I would be in another life if I had the choice. Gigi Castar says, don't you ever experience sunk cost fallacy like I did with my CL for 1.5 years and finally sold it and was happy? I feel like I should know what sunk cost fallacy is. I don't think I do, but I think I get the gist here, where like you feel like you've spent too much money on a camera that doesn't work for you, I think. I don't spend a lot of money on cameras, so I don't feel a lot of guilt for the most part. That has changed recently. I have bought some pricey cameras, but I always look to see what the resale value is so that I never feel like I'm not gonna recoup that cost if I don't like the camera. Gigi K-Star says also, keep the DP2 or sell to fund a nice fast prime for my new camera. What's your take on the DP2M in 2024? That is like definitely not an answer I can give, but for myself, I think the DP2M is friggin' awesome and amazing. It's just a matter of, are you using it? If you're not using it, then go get that other lens. I just think that camera is so unique that I like to keep it. I love that you just keep going here. Okay, Gigi Kester says, is gas also holding you back in actual picture taking? I envy those with one camera and a couple of primes. Yes, so I do think that switching stuff up can inhibit progress and creative growth, but I also think it can shake a rut, right? So is finding that balance. I'm still like, haven't eaten this. I think it's about finding that balance, and for me, 2 weeks was not long enough. I want to stick with the camera longer, I want to shoot more with it, and then at a certain point, I might want to change it up. But a lot of the types of projects I like to focus on are also a little bit of a mixed media, so it's also what you're doing. So in that premise of a mixed media, it's okay to have different looks and feels. There has to be a unifying concept or idea behind it, but that very sort of collage journal sensibility is a reason to shoot that way and can further creative progress. So it's also about what you're doing. Pap Snap says, when are you releasing your Pentax K10D video? K10D is a great camera. I don't have a video plan for it. I don't own the camera anymore, but it is wonderful. I've really been streamlining my gear, by the way, similar to that previous question around like, does having too much gear hold you back? I think if nothing else, it can also give you just anxiety. I don't like having this much gear, and this channel has in some ways required it, and I'm just kind of, again, moving away from the gear, trying to focus on the content. Donnie Shoot says, what are your top 5 cameras? Okay, I know this is just gonna keep coming up, so I might as well just put some cameras out there that I just really love. Okay, so I think the Olympus EM5 Mark III is such a great camera. It's what I started this channel with. It's a fantastic hybrid camera. I still think the video content, the video is really good coming out of the camera. The issue I had was it chops it up into clip. If you just want a simple camera that can do video and stills, it's a brilliant solution. It's small. I love micro Four Thirds, so highly endorse that camera and think it's fantastic. I do not own it anymore, but I do love it. Panasonic G9, obviously. And that camera led me to my current hybrid setup, which I'm also really loving, which is the Panasonic S5 II. I think that's just a genius camera. I pick it up way more than the Nikon ZF, which I just for some reason haven't quite gotten on with yet. I also just haven't given it the time because I don't want to. I'm so happy with the S5 II. So that's been kind of my modern, it's what I'm using to shoot all of this YouTube stuff now with, and I think it's a great stills camera as well, particularly with the latest firmware update. One of my favorites is still gonna be the Olympus E1. What I don't like about that camera is the anti-aliasing filter is pretty strong on it, so I don't think the images ever come out as crisp and sharp as I would like, and that's where my Leica M8 just forever wins the day. I just love that camera's sensor. I love the colors coming out of it. Again, in RAW, the way I'm able to manipulate them. The Andy Dunn says, how do you fit your video photo edit alongside your work and family life? Do you sleep much? This is the struggle. Like, it's really hard, and it's why I don't drop many videos. I just can't. It's not a reality for me to be able to do it. I will shoot the video typically at night after I put my kids to bed, and that's like night one. And then I will ingest and start editing, and it will take me like a week to even put like a rough assembly together and start to polish it a little bit. But it's kind of why the premise of this channel worked so well for me for so long, in that like I could do all this stuff at night after my kids went to bed because it doesn't require a lot of B-roll. It's very gear focused, and all I need is the camera and my thoughts after 2 weeks of shooting it. So that worked, and I could make it happen. Now as I get more to like project-based content and things that really excite me outside of the gear focus, it is a lot harder because I want to shoot people, and then I have to schedule that. So I don't know, it's definitely slowing down, and it's not that I don't love gear anymore, so maybe I will still do a couple of those types of videos. It's certainly easier for me to produce and fit into my life, but it's also, again, like philosophically kind of not what I want to be driving. So it's a bit of a struggle, and I'm currently very much in it. Shitty Photograph says, I love your name, by the way. How do you manage all the different battery types and chargers for your cameras? This camera drawer, which is not elegant or clean, I just have a Ziploc for every different type of battery and charger, and I just store it here. Jumpy9922 says, have you ever tried Affinity Photo? Very, very superficially, but it looks awesome. I have it on an iPad, and what I would love to do is get away from my desktop so much and move to a bit more of a mobile workflow so that I'm not carrying two computers when I travel, because I travel so much, particularly right now. So I would love to be using Affinity Photo on my laptop or on my iPad, and LumaFusion for editing video on my iPad. I'm just a creature of habit, though. I'm so familiar with my laptop, and so I just still love Lightroom Classic and now Resolve. Jumpy992 also says, do you have any workflow updates since your video on processing? Love that one. I'm so glad you enjoyed that. It's like so long and like in the weeds, but I hope that it's helpful. I just like, no gatekeeping here. I like everyone to be able to see what I'm doing. I don't have any changes to that workflow. It's totally the same. Brandon Snap says, gas-slayed or amplified? JK, I know you're hopeless just like me. I really am. Yeah, I just love the cameras. I love Matthias Sperling just released his OM1 video, and the ending of it was absolutely perfect.
I don't need another camera. I don't need another camera.
Memorable Media Photograph says, is your day job related to photography? Sort of. I work in an advertising agency, and I run the production department and operations there. So it's just kind of, it's photo adjacent. Jeff Chum _photo says, what is your favorite food? Oh, I love it. A non-camera related question. Prosciutto, hands down, Last Supper. Lether Kelson. It's so funny because like I feel like we've talked so much and I don't know how to say your name. Build a Frankenstein camera. Take parts of existing cameras that you love and make a dream setup. Ooh, wow. Okay, it's got to be small. It's got to be light. So it also has to have amazing ergonomics. So I'm gonna say it's in the body of a digital Leica CL. It's going to have the sensor of the Leica M8, and it is going to have interchangeable lenses. So I guess it's just basically the Leica CL, but with an older sensor. Goski says, what is a seemingly unattainable photo/video goal or desire for you? What do you think eludes you? So the biggest thing that frustrates me and eludes me is the question of what could I do if I had the time to dedicate to photography or video work? I feel like I have so much more that I could do and that I would like to do, but I don't know if I would be any good if push came to shove, because I've never really had that opportunity, and that eludes me currently and probably always will, because this is never something I've tried to make a professional endeavor. I have a great job and I actually really love my job, so that's just not gonna happen. But I'm always curious, like, what if I took like 3 months off and just dedicated myself to a photo project, or truly trying to like make film in a way that I would be excited about it? I don't know, maybe I'll take a sabbatical someday. Tanel7 says, film or digital Leica CL? Ooh, both. Like, that is kind of my perfect setup, is a digital CL with the Leica film CL. Such a wonderful, both of them. I've had them both. I currently have, I mean, this is what I've been running around. So if, you know, everyone's been asking me lately, all the pictures posted on Instagram are with the Leica CL. This is the digital iteration. I currently have a 24mm lens on here, which gives me a 35mm equivalent. Man, there's just always some interesting activity down at the river. More people yelling at each other. B-Part Photo says, an advice for someone with bad lavella like me. I am so sorry, I don't know what that means. Maybe it's with gas? If it is, I would say one camera, one lens. Just stick to it. Force yourself into it for 1 month and see if it can break the cycle. Mr. Vives.p says, what advice would you give to someone who is going to do a BTS photography, small film? Like, I'm, again, not so certain that I'm following, but is that like you are gonna be on set to do a BTS video or something like that? Comment down below, I'll try to answer that. Paul Pye says, what do you do with your family footage? Which camera do you use? So, oh man, I am so bad at archiving my stuff, but I do have OneDrive exclusively where I keep anything meaningful in terms of family footage. So, I mean, I'm shooting so much that a lot of it just gets dumped and I don't keep it. But if there are some like meaningful moments like birthdays or Christmas or something like that, I do have a drive where I keep those clips. I do have a redundant drive, so it's a backup drive and a master drive. I probably should put it on the cloud, but I don't. And in terms of what I use, it changes all the time. Like, you know, I have footage from, you know, when they were like 2 and I was using a Fuji XH1, and I have footage from today when I'm using the Panasonic S5. I don't really mind what I use. I also have a lot of camcorder footage of them. I think when it comes to your family, I have a ton of iPhone footage too. Like, it just, grab what you have. I do not get precious about my cameras. And that's it. That's the Q&A. I'm gonna finish my cookie now. But thank you guys for the questions. This was fun. And yeah, if you have any other questions, post them down below. And I have another video coming up, hopefully in the next 2 weeks. Really excited about this one. It is a photo project. It involves Polaroids, and I think it's gonna be really fun. I'll see you then. Bye.